Alright everyone, so we're going to get ready to do quite a bit of work on this thing. We'll start tonight and we'll do the rest tomorrow. I got her up on the ramps, and this is going to be a message to myself. One of these things, the bigger ones, because I thought I might need more clearance to get to the oil pan. That thing's like 3 feet off the ground, so maybe next time I'll use the shorter ramps. So note to self, use the yellow short ramps. These red ones are a little too big for this car, I think. Maybe on the Vet, this car's too big, but that's for me, not for you. Alright, so that out of the way, what we're going to be doing is oil change and replacing of all the gaskets. We're going to do valve cover gaskets. I have the spark plugs. I'll show you all that stuff so you'll know what you need for this. And then we're going to do Vanos solenoid seals, which are little guys right in there, if you can see, if she'll focus, that oily mess. And I'm going to try to do this without taking this coolant hose off. I might be able to get some tools in there. I might only have to take loose maybe the camshaft position sensor, if that. And we'll have to take the airbox off. This thing's going to come off. And then we'll do oil. So today what we're going to be doing is draining the oil once this thing cools down a bit, and then that's all for tonight because I just got done working. I'm off work tomorrow, so tomorrow we'll get into the tear down. It'll be pull all this off, pull the valve covers off, replace those, replace the oil pan gasket, replace the Vanos solenoid seals, and change the oil. I wanted to do this all at once, and because we got some seepage. We don't really have a lot of oil leaks per se. I haven't had to oil this thing in like, a year since I changed it. But we do have what appears to be some seepage there. A little bit of seepage there at that grommet. And then the oil pan itself, I think, might also be seeping. But it could just be from leaking up above or something. I don't know. Might not need it that bad, but it ain't going to hurt to change it. Plus, in addition to that, I can check to make sure we don't have any plastic timing chain guide pieces in there. So that's what we're doing, and I'll see you back inside to show you what we're going to be working with. And then for me, it'll be tomorrow when I do the rest of it, but for you guys, it'll be later in this video. It will all be in one glorious go. And there's Callie over there sunbathing. Enjoying that sun? That sun, son. For oil, we have the Castrol Edge 0W40. That's what this car takes. Got 2 big jugs of it. So it's going to be 5 quarts. Right, 1.25 gallons. 5 quarts. I got a total of 10 quarts. I have 1 quart still in the car, so I'll probably have like 3 quarts of this left over. I believe this car takes 8 quarts or thereabouts. This is the filter I have. STP, this particular model, if you're interested. SAM8213 is the oil filter you'll need. Engineered to last up to 5,000 miles. I actually have between 5,000 and 7,000 on it, so it's time to do it. I would have done this sooner, honestly, in like November, or December or January, but I was too busy because rain and people crashing into me and snow and all that good stuff, and cold. And here's what else we're going to be using. We got Vanos solenoid seals, Reinz, part number. We got this goo, guess it's kind of like an RTV, that's going to go over the little bungs on the valve cover gaskets. This little bung right here and here. I don't know how it's opened. It used to be sealed. Somebody's giving me the business. Better not be any hair or nothing up in here. But here's your part number for your goo. Okay, and then these grommets, we'll replace those ones on the valve cover where the bolts go through. And then we got Victor Reinz left and right valve cover gaskets. I think, yeah, I guess it's the same part number. interesting. But I bought them as a kit, so the left and right have the same same part number. That's kind of interesting, but it is what it is, I guess. So you can see that will be just the bung, those will be towards the back side, and then those 3 bolts on the front, and then the little inner part for the spark plugs. And then in addition to the oil, we're also going to use some of this little AT205 reseal. This is like a conditioner, I guess, for seals. It's not one of those like stop leak kind of thing. So it says stops leaks, but it is not a stop leak. It's like a seal reconditioner. So after I replace the gaskets I'm going to replace, we're going to use this as kind of like the inner Vanos solenoid gasket kind of recondition that will hopefully, if the stuff works and rejuvenates it, that'll stop that diesel sound while it's idling. And then with these guys, that should keep that seepage from coming out when I shut the engine off, so that should stop my startup growl, which a lot of people mistake for timing chain guide failure. When you get the startup growl, it's not. Okay, it's just your oil's leaking out of your Vanos solenoids, and then you get that growl on startup for a few seconds till it builds up oil pressure. So placing this should stop that. Ideally, once all this other stuff is on there and new, this stuff should help. The upper oil pan gasket, should that be leaking at all, I don't think it is, but it'll help. And then it should also help the other stuff, and then it'll also recondition them. Well, they won't need reconditioning, but you get the idea. So that's all the parts we're using, and we'll be back once I crack open the drain plug. Alright, I finished dinner and it's been about 30 or so minutes, so should go without saying, but you want to unscrew this guy before you drain the oil. That way as the oil comes out, air can take its place and it's a nice smooth flow. Got my big bucket. Hopefully this holds like 8 quarts of oil, or we're going to have a bad time. Drain plug is under this magnet that I keep on here. Well, that's really on there. Might need 2 hands to get it off. And there's our drain plug. It looks like you can either use an Allen or a socket. We'll use the socket because we don't want to be stripping anything out with the Allen. Alright, that's a 17 mil. Okay. So breaker loose, there's a washer up in there, and your oil filter comes with a new washer, and it also comes with that gasket that goes on your oil filter housing. Alright, so the general temperature is 126, it says. Guess you can see it. 144. So this oil is going to be about 140 degrees, give or take. So, got these guys on so I don't get oil all over myself and burn myself. So this is going to come straight down. My tool is going to be dirty. So don't get this in your face. Burn yourself. Like I said, this is cooled down for about 30 minutes after a short drive home. I don't like wearing these gloves for oil changing, so I don't want to get them dirty, but just in case I get some oil splash on it.
Not too bad. Only a little dirty. Here's the 17 mil with the washer. There is a tool in a little bit of a puddle here, but nothing too bad. So we got a little loopsy daisy that came out of the socket. And then our socket's mildly moist. And we're filling up pretty good. I might need to get another bucket right quick.
Oh, maybe not. Well, maybe. No, we're good, okay. That was a close one. Maybe by tomorrow, because I like to do my 24-hour oil changes, because this is going to drain overnight. And then we'll be back in the AM. This at most might just be maybe a quart would come back out of it, so not too bad. Alright, so while that's doing that, we'll be back. I'm going to go clean my ratchet, and then we'll be back and we'll get this guy. Alright, so you need a 36 millimeter. I got the 6-point. I also have a 12-point, but in the interest of not stripping this out, so this is going to make a bit of a mess. And I don't know if you can see, but here's the gasket right there. That's where it goes. That's where it sits. It doesn't go up here. It's a common mess up. Somebody will put it up here on this lip. No, it goes right here. The bottom of this lip at the top of the threads. That's where you put the gasket. So don't mess that up or you're going to have a bad time. Trying to do is not making a big mess. I have a sneaking suspicion I'm going to. Well, maybe not. Some of the oil's starting to drain out now. You want to try to move this around to get the oil to go down so you can more easily get this out without pulling this off and it flying everywhere, which is most likely going to do. Icky, icky goo. Alright, and then once you've unscrewed it and everything's gone down, screw it back on, and then just kind of muscle this thing off. Just pull on it, wiggle it back and forth slightly if you have to. It'll come off. It's supposed to come off. Shit. This one's really on there. Let's start unthreading it again. Alright, we'll do it the old-fashioned way. You know, right when I cut, I freaking get it figured out. There it is. Okay, so this filter's garbage. As you can see, my hands are kind of oily, but I'll pick you up in a minute. So filter's still intact. So what you want, move this out of the way. And I can see I can't even unscrew it now, but what was happening was the filter was stuck onto this so good that when I unscrewed it, this part came out with the filter, which is fine initially, so that way you can get everything to drain down in there. But you don't want to like unscrew that whole thing off and then pull it out and then mistakenly just put a filter in here without this thing. So don't do that. And this is this is stuck in there now, so we're good. So once I screwed it back in, I just lifted and twisted, unscrewed, and then she slid right off, and that part happened off camera. I was just gonna unscrew it again and then just pull it out, but once I started unscrewing it, she came out, so problem solved. So, alright, that's how we do the draining. Alright, so next morning, battery cut out on me last night, but I didn't really do anything else other than put that on slightly so it doesn't fall off while I'm doing the rest of it. So, oil's out. That's where we ended up with. So we're going to start from the top and work our way down. First order of business is we're going to take the airbox completely off, pull this acoustic cover off, undo this, and then that'll give us access to all the bolts, the valve cover after we pop this guy off, and then do the coil pack and all that good stuff. So I'll be back in a bit. You just need to pop these guys off. You can see them. Undo this. That's, I think, a 10 millimeter. Pull your mass airflow sensor off, and then all this stuff's got to have to come out of the way because we got to get that Vanos solenoid sealed there. And then this one, I may only have to pull the camshaft position sensor out, and then I should have easy access to pull that seal off. I went ahead and WD-40'd it last night to kind of lube this up a little, both of them, to get them off, make it a little easier. I'll spray them right now again. That way I can easily pull those seals out. So we'll be back once I disassemble this a bit. Alright, so progress so far. We got the airbox out. That was a 10 mil. Or that was the 10 mil. We got the snaps off. Note that you have to undo a hose clamp here, one here, and one down there. So you got to get all those hose clamps off before you can pull your airbox loose. And as for the intake part, for your mass airflow sensor, you just squeeze the two sides, and then I used a little screwdriver to kind of push up on it to break it loose. And then over here, you got these two guys attached to that bend right there. This little guy just pulls off his little vacuum hose. This one, there's a little U-shaped clip that you pull up first, and then this just pulls off. And right here, there's another 10 millimeter. You'll need a very long extension to get to it. So if it's sitting in the car like this, those are two things we pulled off. That was the hose clamp by the throttle, mass airflow, and then on this side underneath, that's where that 10 millimeter was. So you'll need something pretty long because it's pretty far down there. Good time now to inspect your boot, make sure it's not cracked or anything. This little bottom nipple's looking a little crusty, but that's the only point of concern I have. Everything else looks fine. Okay, so now you can see the other Vanos solenoid, really easy to get to once you take all that crap off. So I'm going to WD-40 that, unplug those, and it looks like the cam sensor is going to have to come off. It looks like that seal's probably going to interfere with this right when I pull it, but that's neither here nor there. So we'll get to that when we get there. And then as for here, those little covers just pop off. I used a little pick, just pick from the bottom there. There'll be a little opening. Those pull off. There's two on each side. And then now we're just getting ready to take this guy off. And then there's two Torx. And I'll let you know what those are in a second. And then this big guy. And that's the positive for our battery when we jump it. So pull that off, and then we'll keep on keeping on here. Alright, so we got the camshaft position sensors out. Those are in there with a number 5 Allen key. And the bolts do look like they have a little bit of Loctite on the end of them. So they were Loctited in, and then there's a little suction-y dude, little O-ring, kind of holds them in right there. And these are still good. As you can see at the very end, there's no like bubble. You can tell these are bad if on the very end there's like a dome to it. as opposed to being perfectly flat. These are flat, those are fine. So they'll go back in. A little bit of Loctite, and there was a 19, so it holds that power thing on, a 19 nut, and then the two little Torxes were T25. And we got the one off over here. They are just clipped on with this little guy, so you'll have to like lift this clip with your pick and then just pull it off. And then I've wiped these down after lubing them with a WD-40. And now one thing you will notice, and I'll just tell you now before I start moving them, it's kind of hard to tell, but if you look at this yourself on your own, you'll note that the top one is kind of recessed in a little bit to the valve cover, the top part of the seal, and the bottom part kind of protrudes a little bit. So they don't sit in what you would think would be flush. It doesn't look flush, but that's how they go in. So this needs to be in a little, that needs to be out a little. Same thing on this side, passenger side. It's hard to see because of the way the sun is and everything, but that's in underneath. The solenoid is out. So we'll get to doing those, and we'll be done with that part, and then we'll go on to the valve covers. Alright, so we got those out of the, got the bolts out. Those are 10 millimeters also on the top and bottom, and they're not in there very tight. I mean, not at all. They don't seem to be Loctited either. It didn't really take any force to break them loose. Now this bottom one, if you're going to leave this hose on, is a bit tricky, and how you're going to want to do that is get this small 10 mil, get your swivel, and then your long extension, and then you're going to grab at it like this. So the extension runs through and under this hose. Sorry, my left hand's in the way. That's the only way I can kind of hold it. So like this, that's how you're going to grab it. That's the best angle to get to it. And then just put your ratchet on the end, or it's actually loose enough. If you bust it loose, you can just turn this by hand. So that's how that goes. So now we're going to try to pull these seals off, put the new ones on, bolt those back up, put the cams back in, and then we're done with that. And then we can move on to the valve covers. And I did notice, I don't know if I did this or if this was like this, but we got a nice little crack there in our vacuum hose on this here air pump smog kajigger, I guess is what this thing is. So that'll be a vacuum leak. I guess after I finish this, I'll have to take the vet and do an AutoZone run and try to get another piece of tubing that goes there. So we'll get that taken care of. Alright, got this side off. We'll get the other side. There she blows. So technique. I used this guy on one side and this pick on the other side, and then you got to kind of finagle it. Left, right, kind of wiggle it back and forth, and you can pop it loose. So I'm going to clean that out in there. I'm going to put the new one in, and then I'm going to actually Loctite these just because I don't want those things backing out and causing an oil leak again. So I'm going to wipe that out, put the new ones in, and then I guess I'll brake clean all this oily junk out of the way. So that way when I put the new ones on, we'll know if they're leaking or not based on new oil. So I'll finish that up. The technique's going to be the same for this side, I'm sure. If there's anything different, I'll let you know. And then we'll be back with the completed Vanos solenoid seals. Alright, so we got the new ones back in. I'm going to get it ready to degrease and brake parts clean, all that. So went ahead and Loctited those two on and torqued them down a little more than what they were, so we should be good there. All nice and symmetrical. Well, asymmetrical, but you get the idea. Put the clip back on, we'll put the cam sensors back in, and then we'll start on the valve covers. I lost my 10 mil. It's my little 10 mil. Somewhere in the engine, never to be seen or heard from again, so I had to use the long 10 mil with that ridiculous extension thing I got going on here on the bottom one on this because I dropped it and I don't know where it went. Somewhere in the engine, who knows. One piece of advice is you do want to hand start these. If you try all day with a ratchet or a socket or anything, they're not going to go. So hand start them all. And admittedly, this side would have been a little bit easier without this hose in the way. But you got to think, draining the coolant, pulling this hose off, filling it back up later, putting the hose back on. Are you really saving any time by taking the hose off? I'll let you decide that. So one thing I've also noticed is I don't know how well you can see it. Let me see if I can get some light. Now you may or may not be able to see in here, but it looks like we have a wee bit of a leak somewhere. It appears to be some coolant in here. A lot of crustiness, so may have a slight coolant leak somewhere. Looks like I can see just a little puddle of it sitting right underneath these pipes that are running from the water pump. So that may be why I have to add like a little bit of coolant every so often. It's coming from somewhere, probably coming from there, like a little bit of an internal bleeding kind of thing we got going on, but that's not what we're here to do today, so we're not going to address that. I'll just keep that in mind in case I have a massive coolant leak later. I know where the first place to look is, which is going to be underneath all this crap, which means it's not going to be fun to get to. So hopefully that never gets any worse than what it is, which currently is every several hundred, maybe several thousand miles, every several months I get a low coolant light, and then I have to add like a cup. But you know, whatever. All right, so that's that. We'll get this cleaned up and buttoned up, and then we'll take the valve cover off. All right, so I took the two 10mm bolts out and was able to lift the cover off. And so we'll note where the ground wire is there. And it looks like, you probably can't see it, and I can't really get the camera in here all that well, but there is some oil pooled up down by where the spark plugs go, by the bottom of the coil. So that means we do have a little bit of oil leakage. That's not a big deal, because that's what we're here to replace. So that'll get taken care of, and we'll replace spark plugs when we do all that. So next order of business is going to be take the ground off, undo each of those bolts that hold the coils in, and then move this thing out of the way, pull the coils out, and then we can, once this gets out of the way, we'll have access to all the other bolts that hold the valve cover on. Alright, so a bit of time has passed and I don't remember where I last left off, so we'll just recap everything real quick. Ground wire, dealy whopper, unclip the things, pull the things back, lift the deals out. I numbered them 2, 4, 6, 8 just to keep them in order in case I need them. 2, 4, 6, 8, and then these are 10 mils. There's little deals that hold these on there to 10 mils. And what I mostly wanted to shoot real quick before we return our regularly scheduled program is this dude right here. You be incredibly careful with this, because it has a shitload of energy, and when I pulled it up, it flew off so fast I completely lost it. And to give you an idea of all the places it could have been, so you do not want them problems. Now, I moved so fast I couldn't see it. I heard it hit something, but I wasn't sure what, and I knew it was to the right of me from where I was standing here. So I used my handy dandy oil filter magnet, duct taped it up to this broom, and then started sweeping back and forth with it. And I swept all along there, all along the fence line, all the way back, came over here, and then I started to go forward from here, and then I found it. It was somewhere there. It picked up, the magnet picked it up. So, just so you know, stupid leaf thing. I can already see it's going to be a problem. I'm going to pull my valve covers off, and then all this fucking white crap falling down from the sky and this stupid tree over here is going to land in my engine. I'm going to be pissed. But be careful of this thing. I mean, I just pried it up instead of doing it nice and slow and easy. And now that I look at it more, I think you can actually press those down and pull these out. So I don't think you have to pry up on them. I think you can just pull down or push down and then pull out. So just so you know, that's how you not lose this. Because if you do, you're going to be taking time out of your day like I did to go find it. So, alright. Moving on. Now that these are undone and the little nuts are taken off here, we're just going to kind of yank this up, move it out of the way, and then we can pull the valve cover off. So we got this big box off of here. After you did the things I already mentioned, just give it a hardcore yank, and as you can see, that's what holds it on, those 4 fuel injector connectors right there. This gives power to the injectors, as well as the coils. So, yank, and you will be rewarded with this thing coming loose. So there are 11 10 millimeters that hold this valve cover on. 4 on the top, 4 on the bottom, 3 there. We also have access to the spark plugs. So I will yank those guys out first. I don't think they need to come out, but I'll go ahead and get them out now. That way there's less room for things to fall in my engine that are coming from the sky. So those are coming out first. Then I'll pop those things off and yank this valve cover off. Alright, I got the first one out, loosen the other ones, and it looks like it's just here where this is going to disconnect. So there's no real reason that I can see. You don't have to pull the plugs out first. I think what I'm going to do is pull the valve cover off first. And then that way I'll have more room to get the torque wrench in here to torque the plugs back when I put them in. So that's my game plan. Valve cover's off, I'll torque the spark plugs to spec. And here's what the old one looked like. Boom. NGKR. And if this thing would ever fucking focus. BKR 6EQ up. Which are the exact same ones that I got. BKR 6EQ up. So there you go. Quad tip platinums are what it takes. That's what's in there now. These look okay. Okay as in they're not abnormally worn or carboned up, so that's good. We don't have any internal oil leaks or rich conditions or anything, so that's good. Alright. See you in a bit.
5 hours later.
Alright, here's the money shot. You'll note I'm on the other side of the car now. I finished up on that side. So a couple things I learned from there that I'm going to pass on to you, words of knowledge. First things first, you can't, this all looks like a bunch of silicone and whatnot to you, right? That's what I thought at first. But there's part in the very middle here. That's actually a piece of rubber that goes pretty far down in there. So this is the stuff on left and right side that you want to scrape off. Leave this part in the middle alone. Because if you pull it out and wonder why the hell this thing goes so deep, it's because it's like a really long piece of rubber that goes pretty far into the head there. And you're going to spend about 30 minutes trying to tuck it back in. So don't do that. There's also one down there on the other side of the chain. So avoid that like the plague. Don't fuck yourself like I did. Okay. And then on the back, you can see there's a little bit of goo on each side of that little half moon where your little bungs are. Another thing is keep some WD-40 handy, because you can see from pulling this out, we got some nasty bits on the cam lobes there, so we're going to want to spray all that debris that fell in off. Spray that off, then we'll be going in this side. No leaks into the spark plug wells. These gaskets must have been changed recently. I'm going to assume this because A, they seem pretty flexible and kind of newish. So I'm guessing he over-torqued some things and didn't tighten them right, which is why it leaks again on this side. And he definitely over-torqued this thing, because as you can see, these little studs are where they need to be. This one came out whenever I pulled the 10 millimeter out, which looks like this. It'll be these things, then there's a washer, and then there'll be a little piece of rubber I've already pulled off, like this. This side backs up against that washer, and then the side with the little nipple on it, that's what goes down in that direction. Then on your 3 bolts, same deal. You'll have to cut the old bushing deal off and put the new ones on. So I just use my little X-Acto knife down there and cut them off, put the new ones on. So I'm going to get to scraping this off, disregarding that part, and then putting my new goo, my new, I forgot where I set it down. That stuff. There it is. Well, here's the box. The container somewhere. This stuff. The Drei bond. But I'll find that and do that, and then we're going to get this old gasket off of here. Spray it with some brake parts clean, and then we'll put her back on. Alright, spark plugs are back in, the new ones, torqued to, I think that's 25 Newton meters. It's roughly 18 foot-pounds or 222 inch-pounds. So those are all in now. And then we got my bead there, there, and there. I decided to do all that to allow this stuff time to dry. I did put a little bit of my Drei bond here. Just kind of a little dab on each corner here, especially where those bungs are, just so it'll hold better, as I learned from the last one. Putting it on is kind of a bitch unless you make it kind of tacky. So I put that in, gave it time to dry, and then did the spark plugs and all that. So now it's a race against the clock. I'll be back once I get that valve cover back on. Alright, back on. There is a torque spec for this. I don't remember what it is, but bottom line is I don't have a torque wrench that goes that small. And on the other side, you're going to have a hard time getting anything over here, torque wrench wise or others. Like I had to use this little freaking swivel socket little guy, long, you know, it's a pain in the ass to reach anything on that side. So what I did was, on the places I could reach with the impact, I went 1 or 2 uggas with the little one, and then used my little guy and torque till it was tight. In other words, tight by hand. You just kind of go, 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 not applying much torque on this, and then when it stops, you're done. This is one of those times, one of those few times where I would say one more for good measure is not a good idea. And you rarely hear me say that. In this case, it is true. So just go until it is sufficiently tight, and then you're done. Don't over torque it. And alright, that's it for that. So we're just going to reassemble this. We're going to put the plugs back in, zippity zap all the little nuts back on. Put that deal back on, put my battery power cord wherever the fuck I put it. What the fuck is, oh, there it is. Put that little guy back up there, runs up here, boom, and then we'll put all that stuff back on, and then we'll see underneath for the oil pan gasket. Alright, so we got everything back up together now, except the one thing I'm missing is I can't figure out where the bolt that went there goes, or where it is. Must have dropped it in the yard somewhere. I'll have to use my little freaking magnet on a stick trick to find it. I had it sitting over here. It must have been over there, unless I dropped it someplace else. I don't know, but in any case, we're ready to go underneath. Oh, back. Oh, okay, old sucks. Okay, so these are 10 mil. There's a shitload of them, it looks like. Oh, so I guess first things first, unplug this dude, then we'll use the impact and bust all these loose. This is going to be the same torque as what the spark plugs were, and the oil filter housing, 25 Newton meters, which is like 18.4 inch or foot-pounds or 222 inch-pounds or something like that. Whatever that converts to. And then these are 88 inch-pounds or 10 Newton meters, which is like what, 7 point something foot-pounds. I don't have a torque wrench that goes that small, so we'll either just make it tight enough, or maybe we'll just go lowest setting on the torque wrench and maybe back it up a scotch. I don't know. We'll run the bridge when we get there, but we got a shitload of bolts to take off, so I'll be back. Alright, I got the lower oil pan off. cleaned out. Wasn't too bad in there. Up in here, though. Yikes, yikes, yikes. That is what we call some sludge, son. Ooh-wee. There were no bits of plastic timing chain guide. If you look carefully in the oil pickup, though, there's a wee bit of plastic something there. Probably get that out with some tweezers. So maybe these guides have been changed once before. Maybe they went and then this has been replaced, but I'm guessing old boy didn't keep up on the oil change. There's no way this is caused by me. I've only done the second oil change on it. I've only driven between 5,000 and 7,000 miles between them. Way before the car is telling me to, but I'd be willing to wager old boy owned this thing last. Or maybe, who knows how long ago, probably went by, oh, the car says I don't need one, even though it's been like a year and a half. I guess I don't need one. So, yikes, I don't think I can even pick all this crap off. I'm out of brake parts cleaner. I'll try to scrape some of it, I guess, but whatever I can't get, I guess it'll just have to stay. I'll have to buy some of that, that Motor Medic stuff. Crankcase flush. I guess put that in here, try to dissolve some of this next time I do the oil. So yeah, I'll get to scraping, I guess, and we'll put the pan back on and call it a boom done. Alright, so this is the progress we've made. Doesn't look like I've made much, but trust me, we've gotten quite a bit of stuff out of there. So I don't know what this crap is. It looks kind of rubbery slash plasticky, but maybe that's what sludge looks like. I mean, I've never had a car with sludge in the engine. My vet's never had it. I'm gonna assume my Camaro never has had it. I haven't owned it that long, and I've owned it for 9 years now. Bought it new, but I changed the oil on it regularly, and I've had no need to ever drop the pan. But this is out of control. Yikes. So I don't think... I've gotten as much off as I can with these shop towels. And my trusty, wherever the hell I put that. Oh, this dude. My pry tool. We've been scraping and pulling that out. So I don't know. I should give it a once over, maybe some engine degreaser or something. Spray it up in there and wipe it off again, and then put this car back together. Or tomorrow, I'll just drive the vet to work, and when I get home, I'll just spray this out with some brake parts clean and then put it back together. Probably be the better thing to do, get as much of this crap out of here as I can. So that's probably what we'll do. So I'll stop here for the night, and then we'll resume tomorrow, and then this should be done.
The next day.
Alright, so this is as clean as I can get it with degreaser and brake parts clean. And my pick. Got most of the sludgy stuff out, but what I did was I got 2 more quarts of sacrificial oil, as well as another sacrificial oil filter. So what we're going to do is put the pan back on with the gasket, torque it down. We're going to load it up with some of that Motor Medic crankcase flush, 1 quart of that, 7 quarts of this conventional motor oil, and a new filter. We're going to run it for 10 minutes and then drain it again, and that'll get any of this extra crud off. We're hoping that'll all come out, and we can put another oil filter on, the original oil we were going to put in, and then this should be ready to roll after that. So I'll be back in a minute once we get the pan on. Alright, pan's back in underneath, torqued to 80 something ish inch-pounds, give or take. I may give it a little more oomph in a minute, but for now we got 1 quart of that Motor Medic, and 7 quarts of this stuff, and the temporary oil filter. So that should do that about 10 minutes, and we should be golden. And then we'll drain it again, refill it with the real oil, and then be done. So assuming I put everything back together correctly, this should start up and we shouldn't have any leaks. Alright, so we're up and running. It's 6:22, so we got about 10 minutes of letting this thing idle. It did make a really loud rattling coming from this side when it started. I believe that's because this is all bone dry from all that we had going on. This side was fine, no rattling noise, but of course all the oil went in there. So make sure we don't have any leaks. We got something leaking from somewhere. Let's see if we can diagnose that. Looks like the valve cover's leaking something fierce on that side. Yeah, that's not good. Let's see. Yeah, shut it down. So we got a massive oil leak.
Day 3.
Okay, so after that fiasco yesterday, the problem was the bottom of the valve cover had come unseated. I didn't catch that during installation. So it's back together now. Everything's back on. And I didn't record any of that because storm was coming in and daylight was fading. So took everything off again, the airbox, everything off. Adjusted the gasket, put it back on, retacked all that with the Drei bond. And then put this stuff back on. I still need to clamp this and make sure all my hoses and everything are good to go. But that's good. The acoustic cover's inside. I gotta grab that still. And then, since we only had the sacrificial oil running for a minute and a half, this is what the filter looks like. Looks fine. But we're putting a new one in anyway. And then this is the oil that came out of it. So it's already black. It's 1.5 minutes of running with that stuff in it and black. So I guess it cleaned some. So now, oh, and then the other problem was I apparently stripped my drain plug. Trying to put it in, I stripped the threads out of it. So had to go to the BMW, get another one of these. And now we're going to more gently put this one in with our O-ring that comes in the kit. So we're ready to rock here in a minute. I'll go ahead and get that set up and we will reconvene. Alright, so we got the filter housing area loaded with some oil so we don't have a dry start. And we can put this dude with its O-ring on and tighten to no more than 25 Newton meters with the old torque wrench. Alright, we got her torqued down, cleaned up. I got a few quarts in already of the oil, so now we'll just put the reseal in. And the idea being, of course, this will lubricate and soften up your original seals that you still may have, like front main, rear main, valve covers if you didn't change them. Upper oil pan gasket might be rubber. I'm not sure what that one's made out of. Timing cover gaskets. You know, all those ones that I did not replace, we want to go ahead and soften them up. And then this is what we're using. So I've already put the 1 quart in. Got 2 quarts left. So that's 5 quarts of that. So we'll just need a little bit more from my other jug once we're done here. And then hopefully we don't have any leaks this time. And hopefully everything went back together properly, and we don't have any misfires or anything else from my plugs or injectors not being properly plugged in. So hopefully we don't have them problems. This thing fires right up without incident. So I'll cut back once I finish filling this thing up and starting it, and hopefully that'll be the end of it. She'll be good to go for another 5,000 miles at least. That's how long the filter's good for anyway. So I think only 2 more quarts and we're good, so I'll be back in a bit. Alright, so we got 7.5-ish quarts in maybe. Kind of hard to tell, but we should have enough for the initial startup here. So caps on, oil filter housing's tight. I don't see any leaks. We got this clamped back up again. Plugged in, plugged in, plugged in, plugged in. Mass airflow's plugged in. Okay, so everything looks like it's supposed to be. And then as we go down here, I don't see any obvious leaks. Pan doesn't seem to be leaking. Drain plug doesn't seem to be leaking. I did go a little light on the torque this time. I didn't want a repeat of yesterday's shenanigans. That's plugged in. So I didn't spray that off with brake clean. I should have cleaned that where all that oil leaked down yesterday, but it is what it is, I suppose. So alright, let's get this done. And then while this is running, if we don't have any problems, I'll give you my thoughts on this and any extra things you need to be aware of. Oh boy, alright, please start and don't make a bunch of racket. Alright, well that wasn't too bad. We had a little bit of startup rattle, but she was dry. Hopefully that's the last time thing for that. Okay. A lot of wind there. Close that a little so I can talk to you guys, or maybe I'll go in the car and talk to you. It does feel like it runs funny. It sounds kind of lopey. Uh-oh. Shit. Gas pedal doesn't do anything. I may have some injectors or something not on right. I don't know. Guess I'll be back. Alright, so we got that figured out. She's running normal now. That was simple. I read the codes, and I'll put those up on the screen in editing here, but now we're running normal. Sounds fine. My dumbass forgot to actually tighten down this clamp, so it was just sucking air past the mass airflow and then causing 2 codes. It was a cylinder 4 misfire and failed test on throttle spring or something to that effect. So I guess it was saying the throttle actuator was bad and cylinder 4 was misfiring. I was like, well, cylinder 4 misfiring is kind of odd. because, you know, I put the coils and everything on just right. So that had me confused. And then I didn't even touch any of this stuff, so I was like, why would that have stopped working? So it had me confused. And then I went over here and started playing around with the mass airflow. And then I kind of noticed this was a little gapped. And then this was completely free, just spinning around. I was like, oh shit, could that be my problem? So I shut her down, tightened her up, cleared the codes. Now she seems to be doing all right. Got a little smoking action going on from all that oil that leaked yesterday, but I mean, all in all, I think she's okay now. Not leaking any oil. Sounding pretty healthy. Still sounds like a diesel up here, but I anticipated that. You know, we'll give that e38 time to recondition my my inner Vanos, and maybe that'll eventually go away. We're doing much better now. Fan's working, oil's burning off. So I think we're good. I'll make sure we don't have any more leaks or nothing. Filter, no. Yeah, I think we're fine now. I just need to make sure that none of these wires are sitting somewhere where they'll get burned. That gets pretty toasty. So I'll try to maybe tuck some of these wires up. And then I think we'll be okay. I think we'll be fine now. So I'll just do a little, I'll just let this thing idle and burn off all that oil. And then we'll be back. Make sure we don't have any more engine lights or nothing. I guess I'll back this thing off the ramp so I can get better access to this stuff. Alright, so she's all back together now. All is well. Did I close this hood? Yeah, I did. Alright, so final thoughts. You can do this much quicker than what I did if you know what you're doing. So hopefully, if you watch this first, you'll have an idea of what all needs to be done. Get yourself better prepared. Maybe get an extra set of hands, have a tool bitch or something, and you'll be alright. It also helps if you don't have any mishaps like I did where the valve cover doesn't go on right. You strip the oil pan bolt, and then you discover a bunch of sludge in your upper oil pan. So all those things, this should have been done in one day, and it would have been done if it wasn't for the sludge first. Well, first the valve cover, gasket, and then the sludge, and then all that. And the Drei bond takes 6 hours at least to dry. It says between 6 and 24 hours. So yesterday, even when I did fix the oil pan, or the valve cover gasket, the Drei bond wasn't dry yet, so I couldn't just start the engine, you know, for fear of that stuff not being cured, and then me having an oil leak, so I decided to wait on it. So that's all I have to say on that. It's easy enough if things go your way. So hopefully this helps you guys. I know it's going to be a long video. It's going to be damn near an hour. But if you have an hour to kill, you want to know what you're getting yourself into, watch it. And good luck to you guys. I hope things work out better for you than they did for me. So take care. Peace.